Okay, this webinar now is being recorded. Again, I am Dan Nicky from the Iowa Waste Reduction Center. And this webinar is being funded through a grant from the Iowa Economic Development Authority's energy program. I repeated that for the benefit of the recording. Some housekeeping. All participants are on mute, so I'd appreciate if you kept your account on mute and no video, and the speakers will have video when they speak. All the speakers will have control of their presentations. Participants will have the opportunity to ask questions through the question answer function feature. Please don't put questions in the chat feature because that will not be recorded. All slides will be available to participants in about a week from now on our website. An evaluation will be sent to all participants next week. I would please encourage you to fill them out so we have a better idea how we did, and also give you the opportunity to ask for future topics in the future. At this time, I do not, if there's any questions on the housekeeping participation of the webinar, please let me know. If not, I will now hand it over to Bruce Newsom from the Iowa Air Development Group, and he's going to talk about some opportunities they have in their organization. Bruce, you ready to go?
I am, thanks, Dan, and greetings, everybody. Just a little technical check here. Make sure you can see my screen okay.
You're good to go, Bruce.
Perfect. Well, my first topic for you all is to talk about IADG's Energy Bank, which is a revolving loan fund that is targeted specifically for commercial businesses. And it's, as you'll see, there's my plan for attack is to just introduce our organization just a little bit so you can put this into context, but then we'll spend most of the time talking about the Energy Bank itself. We'll talk about some eligibility, when you can use it, when you can't. We'll give some project examples. And I really want to spend a little time talking about the realities of the program, because we've kind of designed it so that it can do lots of things, right? But our target is to help Iowa manufacturers, and we'll get into the specifics of that. And so if you focus on the target, the program is pretty easy to work with. And it's not that we don't do the other things. It's not that we can't help with a broader range of activities, but that does make the process a little bit more in depth, and it stretches out the time. But we'll get into all of that. My goal today is not to scare you, but just create some reality so you know what to expect and when this program might be of assistance. And then I'll finish up with a little bit of impacts that the program has had over the years. I'm sure Dan will stop me with, if you all have some questions, happy to take them at any point in time, because part of my goal for today is just make sure you understand how this works and when it can apply to your particular business. So first, let me do a little explanation about the Iowa Area Development Group. We are a marketing and economic development organization. We are sponsored by our member electric co-ops, the municipal electrics that buy power through the cooperative system, as well as the independent telephone companies across the state. So you can see there's about 85 on the electric side. There's about 125 telcos. And so the best way to show you this is from our territory map. And all that shaded area is probably an area of our electric co-op sponsors. Now, for those of you in communities where you might know Mid-American Energy or Alliant, we may serve in and around those communities, so you may not be a co-op customer, but this program is open to all commercial businesses in Iowa. So our day-to-day operation is trying to help our businesses expand and communities grow in our territories. And we'll get to that in a little bit more detail here in just a minute. You see the Arion logo there at the bottom. Arion is the fiber backbone for all of the independent telephone companies across the state. So we contract the same services for them. In fact, I think Brittany Morales on our staff is one of the folks in the audience. So Brittany's the primary contact for our telco members. From a service standpoint, again, our mission is to help businesses grow in the territories that we serve, help communities grow. We do that from a broad range of marketing and outreach that we do. We work with existing industry. A lot of times once somebody says, yes, we want to expand, or we've got this great idea for a community project, we consider ourselves a technical assistance provider to try and figure out the best approach for them to help accomplish their local goals. A lot of that revolves around financial assistance. And the part of the reason that we're here and part of the reason that the Energy Bank exists is because our members have long been partners with USDA Rural Development using a program to create other revolving loan funds. So you can see my bullet point there. If you add up all of the revolving loan funds that are available at our cooperative members, we have about $75 million in revolving loan funds above and beyond what this Energy Bank has in it, that can help not just for energy efficiency projects, but is really more geared for general business expansion needs, for community development projects, that kind of thing. So we can actually team up the revolving loan funds that might exist locally, as well as the Energy Bank if the right project would be there. The other things that we do education and training for local economic developers and our cooperative staff. We have some business recognition programs, do some PR stuff. But the best way I can show you the group is here's our staff. We're pretty lean and mean, and we are deployed by function. So my role is financial. That's why I'm here explaining the program today, because that is part of the duties that I have at IADG. You can see Brittany there, our Vice President of Community Initiatives. She leads our telco effort. And if it's the right Steve Carroll, we've got Steve Carroll from Lynn County REC on the line, or perhaps some other folks there at Lynn County. So enough infomercial. Let me talk a little bit about the Energy Bank and how it can be utilized, and we can come back and visit some of the revolving loan funds and other opportunities that exist if that's helpful to the group. But the Energy Bank specifically is a $1.9 million revolving loan fund, and it's aimed at energy efficiency projects at commercial businesses in Iowa. Our charge is that we're going to do our best to help manufacturers improve their operations, be more efficient. And the definition of efficiency is pretty broad in that it includes production equipment and being more efficient on that side of things. This program was created because of funding that was part of the Stimulus Act. If you think back to the Great Recession and the stimulus programs, the American Recovery Act that was passed back then, some of that money was handed to the Department of Energy, who passed it off to states to develop energy-related programs. The Iowa Economic Development Authority did that. They had a variety of programs that were those dollars were used for. But as often happens, you get to the end of a time period when there's a program and there's a little bit of leftover money, either because projects didn't proceed or maybe they didn't utilize all the funding that they were approved for. And so knowing that our members have all of that experience with revolving loan funds and that we help administer that, IEDA came to us and said, hey, would you create an Energy Bank program to help Iowa's manufacturers? So we designed the program in late 2011. Again, it's a partnership with the Iowa Economic Development Authority, or IADA, as you see on the slide. And our goal is to help with business retention and expansion. Hopefully we can improve the efficiency of a manufacturer, whether that's production methods or facility or whatever the case may be. Hopefully that makes them a stronger competitor in the marketplace. And that allows them to have stable employment, and if all goes well, more employment opportunities for Iowa residents. Again, our definition of efficiency is pretty broad-based. We'll get to that in just a second. But this is about replacement, not new construction. So that is an important thing for you all to remember. We're talking about replacing some production equipment for newer, more efficient equipment, or we're talking about improving a facility and making it more energy efficient than what it was. But if you've got a new construction that you're talking about, that's really not what this program is designed to do. So when somebody inquires about our program, there's a couple of eligibility tests. The first one is just making sure that we are a commercial business. So this is for any nonprofit. As the slide says, our target is for manufacturers, but any commercial business is eligible. And that does include cooperatives. That does include farmers and farming operations. But it needs to be targeted at a separate farming operation, not just the homestead, if for those that might be involved in farming. What this program does not include is housing-related projects such as apartment buildings or personal residences. That's not what we're designed for. And this program is not eligible to nonprofit organizations or governmental agencies. There's some other programs out there that can help with both of those entities. So that's just not in our bailiwick. As far as examples go, again, our target is manufacturing equipment replacement, helping that production line be more efficient. but we can also do building related improvements. So you can see lighting, insulation, doors, windows, HVAC, all of that kind of stuff. We can also do refrigeration equipment, whether that's involved in a facility that might be producing food, or whether that's in a retail establishment like a small grocery store. So as we'll get to in the examples, we've helped a couple of small community grocery stores replace equipment. We can do some amount of solar and wind demonstration, but it's really small scale. And frankly, we did some of that when we first started up the program to help prove out that cost effectiveness. So we're really more focused on manufacturers and production related efficiencies at this point. One of the things that's true for all projects is we're going to take a look at the payback calculations. So how much you're going to spend on the project, how much the energy savings or other efficiency gains are, and calculate a payback. And to meet the program regulations, that has to be within 25 years of payback. So most projects don't have too much trouble meeting that definition, but it is a requirement of the regulations. The last bullet point on that slide is really talking about eligibility of costs. So general building renovation costs are not eligible for this. So probably the easiest way to think of it is if you have a $100,000 renovation project for a building, but let's say that the new doors and windows, the added insulation, the LED lights you're going to put in it, that totals up to $50,000. Well, I can loan for $50,000 of the project, but not the full $100,000. So we can partner up with other lending opportunities to make a project work, but there is that distinction. And some of that is not only eligibility, but some of that is also important to consider when we talk about some of the compliance issues that come along. Excuse me. So let me move to the next slide here. The main benefit of the program is low cost and flexible financing. We can do loan amounts of $50,000 on the low end to a maximum of $300,000. Of course, it does depend on how much money is available in the fund right now, and we'll get to that towards the end of these slides. It's a 1% interest rate on the loan. We do charge a 1% origination fee at the time of loan closing. That origination fee actually goes back into the fund to hopefully help make it bigger. We can do up to 10 years for a loan term, but we also evaluate that payback calculation. So the project type and the efficiency gains and the payback are all going to influence that. So if we're talking about equipment, we usually are in that 5 to 7 year range. Solar installations, just given the numbers and how they work, we set a policy that those are limited to a 5-year payback. But we can go as long as 10 when that makes sense. And we've had a few instances where that was the payback calculations were a little bit longer. So that's what we did. Rebates and other incentives, if those apply to your particular project, we factor those into the payback calculations, but we don't make any claim on the rebate. So if it comes to you or the advanced appreciation that you get, all of that is just to the company. It isn't tied to the loan repayment other than that helping us establish that initial term. We also have a deferral period. One of the things that we wanted to do is try and make this administration as easy as possible. And so we recognize that there's a time period where, hopefully you put stuff on order, you get your project installed. And so what we do is we just build in a 60-day deferral at a minimum before payments start. And hopefully that's enough time to get the installation completed. Now, we may have to adjust that a little bit given what's going on as a result of pandemics and short supplies for materials and things, but that's the basic policy right now. So you'd sign the papers. We might do an initial advance to get the equipment order that you're applying for, but then payments aren't going to start for at least 60 and typically close to 90 days. That's when interest starts, and then payments start the following month. So there's a little bit of a break there to get that equipment installed. The other requirement that we have is just that payments are electronically. That's just an administration thing for us and probably pretty typical for most loans that are outstanding these days. So my next slide is about the compliance requirements, because these are federal funds. There is some red tape. But before we get to those things, and we can talk about them in as much detail as you want to today, a big thing is to remember the target of what we're trying to accomplish here by helping manufacturers be more efficient in their production equipment. We feel that's the biggest gains to be made for efficiency relate to production. And so that's really where we put our focus And if that's the project, the red tape that goes with the program is really pretty minimal. But as we expand out and we do other things, or the project is a little bit more broad, it can influence things. So I would say on the low end, we're probably talking about a 30 to 60-day process time for getting to a loan approval. But as we get to broader projects that might be building renovations and historical reviews and some of that kind of stuff, it can take 4 to 6 months. So again, I'm not trying to scare you. I'm just trying to paint some realities that inside the target is pretty easy. When you get broader, it just takes more time. It's not necessarily hard. It's not necessarily expensive. It just takes a little time to get all of those other agency sign-offs that we need to do. So let me walk you through each of the compliance requirements here at a high level. The first one is the energy efficiency study that's required. And you can see there I've labeled it as an appropriate third-party review, because that's really going to depend on what it is we're talking about. In some instances, we have used information from the vendors when somebody was putting in new windows or more insulation or LED lights. We've accepted the information that they got from the vendors that compares what they have currently versus what their energy consumption should be at the time it's done. Sometimes we have to pull in the utility of the area to help verify some of those things. We also have an outside service that can do that as well. So it kind of depends. Things get more complicated when you're looking at production equipment, because chances are the new equipment is going to allow for more throughput. So the efficiency is on a per piece basis, not so much as an overall use of the machine. But the other factor that's there relates to the operator's time per piece. And so we have kind of a combination of things that go from not only the energy savings per piece, but the wage savings per piece. And all of that's calculated into the repayment calculations. So we'll try and be as flexible as we can on that. You may have questions. If you all have specific things that you have in mind, we can cover that here in a little bit. This program is subject to a few federal regulations. The biggest one probably is Davis-Bacon wage thresholds. These are the prevailing wage requirements, and these apply based on the county that you're in, and also by the job title of the folks that are working to do the rehab of the building or do the installation, that kind of thing. So there's thresholds for wages that have to be met. And so if depending on where you're at and what you're doing, that contractor may have to pay at a little bit higher wage than what they might otherwise do for this particular project. Perhaps not, it just depends on the circumstances. The other issue is that that vendor has to provide us with weekly wage reports to verify that they are meeting the wage thresholds. So there's a little bit of process involved there, and that's important for contractors and installers to know as we get into organizing your project. If you are in an older building, there can be a review required by the State Historical Preservation Office. That's the SHPO acronym there you see in the bullet point. So if your building's over 45 years of age, you're going to have that SHPO requirement. There's some materials and homework that you have to do to tell them about your project and the age of the structure and take a few pictures and things. We haven't ever had it be an issue, but it does add probably 45 days onto the process by the time we gather up the information, get it to SHPO, and have them go through their review process and comment. There's also the NEPA environmental review, and basically what that means is there's a series of things that we are approved for as far as replacing with Energy Star appliances or machinery, putting in certain levels of insulation. If we do a demonstration solar and wind, there's limits to how big those can be. So as long as you fit within the box, it's a simple form that you check that you do fit within that box. And if you're doing something outside of that, then there may be more information that has to be provided. So not really anything too hard or too technical, but again, just depending on your project, maybe a little bit of extra process involved. The next one down is the waste management plan. And one of the things that we are charged with is documenting how you are disposing of whatever it is that you are replacing. And so it's not anything super huge or tough to comply with, but we just need to know, some materials will probably be recycled, some materials will probably go to the landfill for proper disposal. Other things may be sold off as scrap and repurposed. So it's just kind of that general knowledge of what's going to happen with the things that you're replacing. So all of that stuff so far on that list really relates to the application process itself. And then there's a little bit of compliance to do after we close the loan and you get your project installed. Most of that involves around showing power bills if the part of the efficiency was energy savings, or it's job counts of the business if, again, trying to show the impacts of what we're doing with these dollars, especially targeting manufacturers. So I'll stop there unless somebody has specific questions. So I'll let Dan chime in if we want to address something now, or just wait till the end of this set of slides.
Bruce, at this time, there are no questions.
Okay. All right. Well, I will keep going here. Our application process. All of the pre-application information is available on the website, on our website, and I'll have that information for you at the end. So you've got all the program guidelines, you've got sample materials, you've got summaries of the terms of the loan, and you've also got a pre-application. And really that's just an opportunity for you to put down contact information, describe what it is that you're doing. And if you've already done some efficiency studies work, comparing what the benefits will be from an energy saving standpoint, we ask for that information. And if you haven't done that, then that's your chance for us to talk a little bit about what it is that I'm going to be looking for to make sure that you're eligible. Once we have that information in, then we require just general full application is what we call it, but it's basically business plan information and financials of the company just to demonstrate repayment ability. And then that's where you get to work through all of the NEPA, the SHPA requirements, if those apply, the Davis-Bacon requirements, getting those ready so that it can go to our loan review committee. And that is a mix of folks that are tied to someone with financial background, someone with energy background, and also a representative from the Iowa Economic Development Authority. And I can tell you they've done a great job reviewing applications. They've been excited about the kinds of things that we have been accomplishing, especially with growing employment and manufacturing opportunities. So they've been a good bunch to work with, and they bring a broad base of knowledge to the table when we're looking at a project. From there, we'll get things closed, and then compliance. Probably the bulk of it is up front if you have Davis-Bacon compliance to do, and then after that, it's really just energy savings documentation a year after the project is made. So let me give you a few examples of some of the things that we've worked on. Again, knowing our manufacturer's target, the first picture upper left is really some automated bandsaw work that's done. Basically, raw steel feeds in from one end, it's cut to a size automatically, it goes into the wood crate you can see there, and is then taken over to be used in another part of the process. So that saves some considerable time and got rid of some old equipment for that particular company. We've done laser cutters, we've done tube cutters. There's quite a bit of metal cutting equipment that we've been involved in. On the right hand side is just a picture of a grocery store, a small community that we did refrigeration cases. Those cases dated back to the 1950s. And so they are going to see some incredible gains in energy efficiency. But I think the biggest thing that community's most excited about is the fact that unfortunately, when they get to that kind of age, as you can imagine, there's a frequent breakdowns and food spoilage and that kind of stuff that no retailer wants to see. So they're, now that new equipment's in there, it's not only a better presentation, but food spoilage has gone to basically nothing. Lower left is some LED lighting replacement that's happened at a manufacturing facility. The one thing I would offer is that when you're doing that, especially if you're just putting lights back in the same spot where they were in previously, it's a pretty easy one to do as far as red tape goes. So that's something to keep in mind. And then again, early on, we did some solar and wind projects. So you've got a farm company here that did solar panels and a small wind turbine. As far as impacts of the program, we've made 19 loans so far. It's about $3.2 million. We've got another $600,000 that's approved and about to close. It's been split pretty evenly. Again, the 1.3 was early on renewables. And since then, we focused on energy efficiency projects. The yellow squares are the counties where we've had projects. We're going to add a couple more in. But as you can see, we've got an awful lot of ground to cover to crisscross the state. So we hope there's a lot of opportunity later on down the road. From a energy saving standpoint, we estimate that the productivity gains that the manufacturing companies or the energy savings of the retailers have all gained. It saves about 1.1 million kilowatt hours per year. And a lot of that has, been direct production gains for employers. We talked about the food spoilage benefits at the grocery store, but we also can show that we've had some impact to help retain and create 283 jobs as a result. So we're pleased by that. Again, that's really what we're hoping to accomplish and document by helping our commercial businesses be more efficient. So as far as money to lend goes, we are accepting applications. We have about $150,000 to $175,000 available right now. So if probably a smaller to medium-sized project can be fully funded right now. We do fund up to 100% of the project. So we can do the equipment purchase, the installation costs, all of that kind of good fun stuff, up to 100% of the costs or whatever is available in our fund or the maximum. And my last slide here is contact information. Again, all of the preliminary information is on our website at iadg.com/energybank. So all of the information you would need to get started is there, or you're welcome to give me a call. I've got both my email address and telephone numbers listed. So Dan, I know that's kind of short and sweet, but I wanted to keep things high level and offer some time for questions if anybody has them. If not, we can also talk about the revolving loan funds that are available at our members, which aren't necessarily tied to energy efficiency, but maybe a good resource for folks as well.
Okay, Bruce. Attendees, if you have a question, please put that in the question and answer function of the Zoom, and I will relay them to Bruce. Bruce, I have a question for you. From a waste reduction perspective, you mentioned that you asked your participants to let you know where their waste materials are going from the project, which I think is an excellent idea. To follow up on that, do you have any requirements that they have to reclaim so much or divert so much? Is there any type of goals that are set?
That's a great question, Dan. And there's not really goals so much with this as it is just trying to make sure that we're properly disposing of things, making sure we can recycle when we can, but we don't have any specific targets or requirements in that regard.
Okay, and this is something maybe we can talk offline though, but there are programs within the state that could assist your loanees to divert some of that waste materials from landfills if they're interested.
Absolutely.
Okay. All right. Any questions for Bruce so far until he goes on to this next topic about other loan programs in general? Amber, could you do me a favor and just type an example question? I just want to make sure that the question function is working. And Bruce, at this time, why don't you just talk about the rest of the other financial options available?
Yeah, you bet. So the other thing that I would mention is that our members are, as rural utility service borrowers or eligible to be an RUS borrower, they have access to some other programs at USDA Rural Development. And it's a shame that Jeff Joe had an emergency, so we couldn't talk about this in addition to some of the other things that they have. But our cooperative members can apply for 0% interest loan financing to help business expansions in their area. And the goal is to create new jobs, better jobs in rural areas and increase the skill set of the rural workforce. And our members have a long history in utilizing this program. We brought $140 million into the state to help with business expansions. And there's two sides of the programs. One is direct for commercial businesses. It provides up to $1 million worth of 0% interest financing. It is the way the program works. It actually requires the utility to sponsor the application. They're actually guaranteeing that loan back to USDA. So there's some pretty strong collateral requirements there. So it's not maybe going to fit every project, but if it's a rural manufacturer, rural expansion project, it may be an opportunity to help fund that. So you can get 0% financing for up to 10 years. There is a 1% administration fee and probably a requirement that the collateral we're going to ask for is an irrevocable letter of credit. So it does require financial institution involvement. It's probably for larger projects, but it may be something that can be of assistance depending on what you are doing as a commercial business in Iowa. It would also, possibly team up with the Energy Bank if that was the case. The other side of the program is to help nonprofit entities the first time. So let's say your hospital or your school is expanding, or something good like that is happening in the community. Our co-op members can apply for funding to help create or build a revolving loan fund. The first loan goes out to the nonprofit entity, but then as they make their payments back, that stays right there at the cooperative. And then that money loses a lot of its federal identity. It can then be loaned out to for-profit businesses or other community development projects. It can be, it's pretty flexible money. Energy efficiency is allowed, but the rules are kind of set by the local cooperative, to respond to those local priorities. And every revolving loan fund has a little bit different personality. We have some that really put the focus on helping area development corporations buy new ground for industrial development, helping cities put in infrastructure, helping build spec buildings so that you as a business have a place to go and expand as you need it. We have others that maybe serve a little bit more rural area, less industry in the area. And so they put their focus on smaller projects in retail and Main Street and those kinds of things. And then the rest are in the middle, helping businesses grow, helping other entities expand and do good things in their communities. The first time the money goes out to that nonprofit, it's 0%. After that, we do charge an interest rate, but it's below market. So prime rate is the maximum it can be. Usually those are going out the door in 2 to 3% cost of funds. So it's low cost monies and local decisions. The money's there. And if, again, we talked about the $76 million across the state, $75 million across the state. Our average co-op has $1 million revolving loan fund, and most of them are a little bit bigger than that. And so there is some opportunities there, whether you're talking about an electric cooperative, whether you're talking about an independent telco, and even some of the municipal electrics across the state now have these funds. So the big thing to remember is there's a lot of different agencies that can help fund projects, whether it's just an expansion of some kind. But if you have something that relates to energy savings or more efficiency, that's when the Energy Bank might be the one to step forward, be front and center. So Dan, that's kind of a quick overview. I know I'm probably a little bit early, but unless there's questions, I would turn things back over to you.
Well, I must have really screwed up setting up this webinar because the question and answer function is not seeming to be working right now. So if anybody has a question for Bruce at this time, just unmute yourself or ask it in the chat function right now. So again, if you have a question, unmute yourself or put it in the chat function for Bruce.
All right, I'm not seeing anything. So Dan, I'll turn it over to you for our next presenter.
Okay.
Thanks so much, everybody.
Thank you, Bruce. And if you do have any questions for Bruce, you have his contact information, or put them in the chat function, and we can get to him at the very end of the webinar as well. Our next presenter will be Amber Buckingham from the Iowa Economic Development Authority, talking about their energy program. Amber, take it away. And again, if you have questions, please put them in the chat feature or hold them to the end, and then you can unmute yourself. Thank you.
All right, can everyone see my screen here?
Amber, you're not in presentation mode.
Yep, I'm getting there.
Okay.
We should be. All right, we looking good now?
Looking good.
All right. So good morning to all of our attendees. As Dan said, my name is Amber Buckingham. I am the program manager for the Iowa Energy Center at the Iowa Energy Office, which is housed within the Iowa Economic Development Authority. So lots of layers there. Our agenda for my discussion is kind of a very brief overview of the Iowa Energy Office. We'll do some general information about the Iowa Energy Center, because that's where most of our funding is available. A general overview of the Iowa Energy Center grant program, probably a little bit more of a deep dive in here because I'm an expert on this one. A overview of the current program for the Iowa Energy Center loan program, which some of you may know as the AERLP, and then the future of that program. And then we'll also briefly touch on the ARA federal grant program that we have available as well. So general information about the Iowa Energy Office. We are designated as a state energy office via the governor, Iowa Code, and the U.S. Department of Energy. We do get some of our funding from the DOE, and so we do have some funds available through that program, but that's pretty limited. We've been housed at the Iowa Economic Development Authority since 2011. We are a non-regulatory body, and our focus is really on strategic direction, stakeholder engagement, communication with state agencies, and the implementation of programs. Probably the thing that currently the Iowa Energy Office is most known for is the Iowa Energy Plan. This was led in 2016 by then Lieutenant Governor Kim Reynolds, the IEDA, and the Iowa Department of Transportation. It was a year-long process with many working groups, and we have some information. We've got plans and resources that was released in 2016, and then a progress report that was also released in 2018. We are planning to do another progress report and maybe a little bit more planning and resources here in the near future. So you may see an updated version of that Iowa Energy Plan here in the next year or two. The general focus of the Iowa Energy Plan is on these 7 key focus areas. So we have 4 pillars, and those 4 pillars are economic development and energy careers, Iowa's energy resources, transportation and infrastructure, and energy efficiency and conservation. And within those pillars, we have our focus areas, which are energy workforce development and technology-based research and development, biomass conversion potential, natural gas expansion, the vision for grid modernization, alternative fuel vehicles, and access to energy expertise in rural areas. As some of you may know, in 2017, the Iowa Energy Center, which was formerly housed at Iowa State University, was transferred to the IEDA. It is a utility ratepayer funded program, and the transfer was signed into law on May 12th of 2017. That transferred the management and responsibility of the Iowa Energy Center from Iowa State to us here at IEDA. And the general mission of the program with the IEDA-led version is to support activities which align with the 7 key focus areas of the Iowa Energy Plan. The official transfer took effect on October 1st, 2017. And we have Iowa Energy Center board oversight. The board members are governor appointed. And both the loan and the grant program opened for applications in March of 2019. The Iowa Energy Center's funding source does sunset on July 1st of 2022. We have been getting a lot of questions because we're coming close to that date. That doesn't mean projects have to be completed by that date, but that is the last time we'll receive the transfer of funds from the utility partners. So the IEC grant program, as I said, I'm the program manager for this, so I have all the information for you, and I'll try my best on the other programs. So eligible grant recipients for this program are Iowa businesses, colleges and universities, and private nonprofit agencies and foundations. And this applicant pool was expanded with the transfer to IEDA in 2017. It is a competitive grant program, which means that we have at least one funding announcement per year. We do have a competitive scoring matrix, and we also have a pre-application phase for this particular program. And all of this information is also available on our website, including the policies and procedures that govern the program in general. Projects have to align with one of the 7 key focus areas of the Iowa Energy Plan, and they must provide a benefit for Iowa ratepayers. One question we get asked a lot is, what is a ratepayer benefit? And I will point out that we leave that up to grant applicants and really applicants for any of our funding programs to define. We did not want to define that ourselves because I think that can lead to a narrow focus and a narrow definition. And so we leave that up to applicants to tell us how this benefits Iowa ratepayers who are really funding the program. So some general eligibility requirements for the Iowa Energy Center program. The applicant must be an eligible applicant. The funding request must meet eligible project and expense requirements, and I'll go into that a little bit more. The request must be between $10,000 and $1 million, and the initial grant duration cannot exceed 3 years. We do offer grant extensions, but the maximum that a grant can take is 5 years. And applications are submitted through iowagrants.gov. So some ineligible project types would be the relocation of a business or the expansion of a business, funding for existing training programs, and private asset development. And this particular project type, we get a lot of questions about it. So some examples of private asset development would be the installation of solar panels on the, at a building site that's only going to benefit the owners of that building or a very small segment of Iowa ratepayers. Now, that's not to say if you come up with a great idea for a new energy efficiency project that you think could work and could be expanded and replicated around the state, those types of projects may be eligible as long as you are willing to divulge the information that you learn from the pilot. So it is a little fuzzy, and I always recommend, if you think that your project might air into the kind of private asset development arena, to please give us a call and we can chat about it and see if we can make something of it and get a project, an application. We also do not allow pipeline, transmission line, or distribution line construction. First generation ethanol and cellulosic ethanol projects are also ineligible at this time. For eligible expenses, we include salaries and wages, supplies and materials, domestic travel, tuition if you're at one of the academic institutions in the state, equipment purchases, and vehicle purchases, but only if they're germane to the project itself. Ineligible expenses would include the purchase or rental of buildings, office equipment, furniture and fixtures, intangible assets, international travel, insurance, and phone expenses. Some other budgetary requirements of the Energy Center grant program. And this first bullet point is largely for academic partners, that indirect costs cannot exceed more than 20% of the grant award. Grant funds can also not be used as cost share to a federal grant award. And this third bullet point is a change from previous years. We are now requiring cost share to apply for Energy Center funds. It's a 5% minimum. That can be for most applicants in-kind cost share, so it does not have to be a cash match. If you are within the private industry and you are purchasing equipment, there are some caveats to that. So I would encourage you, if you're thinking about applying, to make sure and review the policies and procedures and the pre-application and full application handbooks. And then the fourth one, if you don't tell us you're going to buy a car and then you buy a car, we're probably not going to reimburse that. So the general application process for the Energy Center, we do make all of our funding announcements via press release, and we also post them on the IEDA website. We will also post them on the iowagrants.gov landing page under funding opportunities. If you're familiar with that, That can be a little bit hard to navigate. So I always tell people if they're interested in being in the or on the mailing list for the press release and the announcement, to please send me an email, and I'll provide my email address at the end of this presentation, and we can make sure that you're on the mailing list if you're not already. As I mentioned previously, we do require pre-applications for this fund. They're very short and sweet. We do have very small character limits. Most of them are about 500 characters. So they're pretty easy to complete. And then we invite applicants for a full application round if they meet the minimum scoring criteria. Those are both submitted via Iowa Grants. And we have a grant committee made up of our governor appointed board members that review the pre-applications and then invite selected applicants to complete the full application. And then that same grant committee does review the full applications, and they make the recommendations to the Iowa Energy Center board, who then vote on each application. So the Energy Center board does in the end have the final say on which applications are funded and which are not. So with our first round of grants, which were awarded in July of 2019, the average award was around $260. We did have $4 million that was available for funding, and we ended up with about $2.6 million in awards going out that year. The average duration was 3 years. We had 61 pre-applications and 19 full applications, and we awarded 10 grants. That particular year, most of the applications and awarded grants were from or to academic institutions. With our second round of grants, the average award was $250,000, and these were awarded in September of 2020. I don't want to forget that. And we were at about 2.7 million, so a little bit higher. The average duration on these grants was 2 years. We received 65 pre-applications and 22 full applications, and 11 grants were awarded. And with the second round of grants, we had a better mix of businesses, nonprofits, and academic institutions. For the future, our next funding cycle will likely be announced in late 2021. With that July 1st, 2022 funding sunset, we want to ensure that we have the next round out and completed before that date. And then I'm going to grab this. At the end of this presentation, I'll go over some of the project examples for the Energy Center. So hang tight for that. Does anyone have any questions about the Energy Center grant program at this point?
Amber, I don't see any in the chat function, but again, if anybody has a question, put it in the chat function, or at this time, unmute yourself and ask Amber directly. Okay, Amber, not seeing.
Okay, I will move on to the Iowa Energy Center loan program. As I mentioned, most of you may be familiar with this as the Alternate Energy Revolving Loan Program, or the AERLP. This loan program began in the late 1990s and was enacted in Iowa Code. It is 0% interest on these funds, and they are meant to encourage the development of alternate energy production facilities. Eligible projects include small hydro and AEPs, and they have quarterly application cycles, and you apply through iogrants.gov in a similar way to the Energy Center program. They don't require the pre-application piece though. So what is the definition of alternate energy production facility? It could be solar installations, wind turbines, waste management, resource recovery, refuse-derived fuel, agricultural crops and residue, wood burning, related improvements and facilities. A good example would be energy storage. We have seen quite a few of the applications through the loan program for energy storage in conjunction with some solar as well. So currently in the Iowa legislature, the IEDA has an omnibus bill. And as part of that, it includes a rehab of the Iowa Energy Center loan program. And the new proposal is to create an energy infrastructure revolving loan program, or EIRLP. We like the acronyms. This has been proposed in this legislative session. Obviously, that's still pending. So we'll see where that ends up. But the program manager wanted me to give a little bit of information about what that may look like in the future. So the proposed program will allow for below market interest rates. It intends to broaden eligible project types, and it ties the project outcomes to the Iowa Energy Plan and Iowa Energy Center priorities. That's not currently the case with the ARLP, so it will tie the program a little bit more closely to the goals of the Energy Center. And so what are energy infrastructure projects? What do we envision? It would support electric or gas generation, transmission, storage, or distribution. It would assist in electric grid modernization, energy sector workforce development, emergency preparedness for rural and underserved areas, so focusing on resiliency for those areas, the expansion of biomass, biogas, and renewable natural gas. So we could be looking at some anaerobic digestion projects, innovative technologies, and infrastructure for alternative fuel vehicles. If passed, the administrative rules will be developed with the IEC board and stakeholder input, and applications are estimated to open in the fall of 2021. Any questions about the current loan program or the proposed?
There's nothing in the chat function, but if anyone has a question, ask it directly to Amber at this time.
All right. Hearing none, I will move on to our ARA Energy Federal Grant Program. And I'm sure most of you are familiar with ARA. When IEDA started receiving payments back from those initial projects that were funded, we sought approval from DOE to repurpose those funds into a grant program. And that has been underway at IEDA for about 3.5 years at this point. Eligible projects for this program, as with all of our programs, should support the Iowa Energy Plan implementation efforts and those 7 key focus areas that I touched on at the beginning of our program. We are looking for innovation with this program, and statewide replicability potential is also very important. The ARA, so typical projects for ARA are under $200,000. They can range anywhere from 6 months to 3 years. The project can pay for man hours, consulting services, and things like that, but they cannot be used to purchase equipment or construction. Because these are federal funds, Davis-Bacon wages, and all of those good rules do apply to any funds that are awarded. The funds do not have a timeline or expire, and applications are reviewed on an ongoing basis. So there's no cycles or anything like that. So if you have an idea that you think would be a good fit for this particular program, you're free to apply at any time during the year. One thing to note is that these funds cannot be used on technology that is not yet commercially available. That's a little strange little caveat to this program. And then I can open it up to some questions here.
Amber, we do have a question
Okay.
through the chat function.
All right.
I think this is referring to the legislation that was going through to modify the loan program. The question is, was there any debate or discussion on this bill during the session?
Not for this particular piece that I'm aware of. I haven't heard of any major controversy surrounding it, to my knowledge.
So you think it will be going, most likely passing then?
We think so, but you know, crazy things can happen during session, so no guarantees.
I have one question for you, Amber. For the ARA funding, is the IADA continuing to get funding for that through the Energy
Yes.
Department?
Yep. So we just recently, in the last year, resubmitted another application to repurpose some of the additional funds that we had come in into the ARA federal funding program. As people make repayments, we have to apply each time to use those funds in this manner.
Okay.
And
Anybody has any questions for Amber at this time, please feel free to put it in the chat function or ask it directly. We do have another one through the chat function.
Okay.
And I just lost it. Hold 1 second, Amber. How is the new loan program to be funded? Is it if it passes legislation?
So it'll use the same funding that we currently have. So we have a pot of money that was transferred from Iowa State to IEDA when the original transfer of the Energy Center occurred. And so we'll just repurpose those funds for this use.
So the loan program is just revolving the money it's using right now. It's not getting any additional funding. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. Another question for you, Amber. Can you define commercially available more specifically regarding ARA? Does this mean ready to manufacture and sell, or must be sold and in the market already?
So my understanding, and I can get some further explanation to you about this if you can provide your email address. My understanding is that it just has to exist. So you can't be creating a new technology. But if all of the components of said technology already exist and you're packaging them to create something new, my understanding is that is also okay.
Amber, you had mentioned about talking about some example projects.
Yes.
Correct?
Yep. So I can run through just a few examples of projects that the Iowa Energy Center grant program has funded. So currently we are funding a peak power avoidance project for Iowa poultry facilities to reduce grid demand. We are also working on a wastewater study to help improve the efficiency of lagoon management. We're looking at some soil carbon and generating carbon negative energy in Iowa communities. We are also funding a project that is looking to create sodium batteries for wind energy storage. We are creating a toolkit for low efficiency rural housing to help decision makers. And then we are also funding a study for distributed solar and wind power generation for rural and underserved areas. Those were all grants that were awarded during the first round of funding. And during this most recent round, we are funding some Iowa rural energy planning projects with Green Iowa AmeriCorps and University of Northern Iowa. We're also developing Iowa secondary classroom curriculum that focuses on energy. One study is looking at low-cost bio-based composite materials for wind turbine blades so that they're recyclable and more durable than the current blades available on the market. Let's see, we're doing a rural healthcare microgrid feasibility analysis. So looking at islanding healthcare facilities in case of another derecho or polar vortex, and making sure that they have the resiliency to do that. And then predicting battery lifetime, so we can better monitor those batteries. And see, I think those are, and we're working on a workforce development program for rural Iowa communities and getting certifications for facility managers and building operators in Southwest Iowa. That will hopefully be expanded statewide.
Great, Amber. At this time, I'll open it up to any questions for both Bruce or Amber. You can just unmute yourself and ask them directly or put it in the chat function. Again, I apologize that Jeff Jobe from the United States Department of Agriculture was not able to be here today due to a family emergency, but please be aware that they do have some great financial programs to help with energy projects. One being the REAP program. Bruce, are you aware? I know you have a little bit of knowledge. What else does USDA have available that you know of?
You know, they have a variety of things. I was just going to jump back on camera to add that if you have questions about how USDA might be able to help your projects, they have regional offices scattered throughout the state, and they have business program directors that administer a variety of projects, including REAP. And I know they're working on, some of these programs are administered out of the national office when you've got a bigger project. I know there's a couple of processing plants that are looking for some specific loan guarantees that are offered on, $100 million facilities to help them bring new technology to the marketplace and, help secure the financing that they need. So I can do a quick search here and get their webpage up for you for the Iowa contacts. And even though Jeff's not here today, I'm sure anybody on his staff would be happy to help answer questions or talk about programs in more detail.
Yeah, and if you do have a question for USDA or would like more information, you can email them to me, myself, and I'll make sure they get forwarded to Jeff or somebody else at USDA. So please feel free to reach out to me with a question regarding USDA, and I'll be more than happy to find out that answer for you. Okay, well, one last opportunity to the audience to ask any questions through the chat function or unmuting yourself.
Hey, Dan, I would just like to point out that IADG does have other funding opportunities available. So if you have a project that you think is interesting or would really benefit the economic development of the state of Iowa, please don't hesitate to reach out. It may not be through the energy office in particular, but we may have other funding opportunities through business development, SBIR, things of that nature.
Great. And Bruce did just put up the USDA's website there to get some more information, and it's Iowa specific. So thank you very much for doing that, Bruce.
Yep. And I will put up the next one I'll post here real quick is the direct contacts to everybody.
Okay. All right. While Bruce is doing that, I don't see any other additional questions. I would like to thank our speakers today, both Bruce and Amber, and I hope you as attendees found the webinar educational and look forward notifications on future energy assistance webinars. Probably will not be happening until the fall since summer is coming. We will be posting the slides on the IWRC website and in a couple of days. You will be getting an evaluation from me probably on Monday. Please complete that if you can. It will be very short, but it will provide us great needed information to find out how we did and also on future topics for other webinars. Again, I apologize for some of the technical difficulties, but it seems like we got through it okay. And I hope everybody has a good rest of the day. And again, if you have any questions, you have the contact information from our speakers, or then you can forward them directly to me and I'll make sure we find out the question for you. Thank you, and everybody have a good day. And again, thank you to Bruce and Amber for providing your time today. Bye, everybody.
Bye.